Police rip off a Latina woman's blouse. Her lawyer's call brings down the entire county. It happened under the blistering sun. Friday afternoon, the Silver Creek Artisan Market shimmered with terracotta turquoise and the smoky scent of roasting chilies in the air. Children licked brightly colored snow cones. Tourists ambled past stalls of handcrafted leather and vibrant desert pottery. There was nothing unusual about the day until the moment a cry sliced through the heat like a shard of glass. "Get your hands off me!" People turned just in time to see two sheriff's deputies forcing a Latina woman to the ground on the dusty cobblestone between a jewelry stand and a hot sauce vendor. Her woven tote bag tore open small clay figurines scattering across the stones. One deputy gripped her wrist, the other twisted her arm behind her back, and in the struggle her blouse ripped badly. A jagged tear down the front exposed her bra. A collective gasp rippled through the onlookers. Someone dropped a string of painted beads. A young child began to wail. The woman's name was Ava Cole. 35 years old, her skin the warm color of bronze. A terracotta linen blouse torn down the front. Shoeless now, her sandals knocked aside when she was slammed down. Her dark wavy hair pulled into a loose knot at the nape of her neck had come undone, but her voice, even under duress, was steady. "You're making a mistake," she said, her jaw tight. "I have a receipt. That pottery was a gift. Turn around." One of the deputies snarled, beefy, his face flushed under the desert sun. His name tag read Russo. The other one, lankier, younger eyes shifting nervously, was Deputy Miller. Phones were already up, cameras filming. From the edge of the market, a man yelled, "Hey, she didn't do anything," another voice added. "That's Ava. She volunteers at the community center." But the deputies didn't slow. Russo dug through her bag, shaking out a crumpled receipt that was carried away by the hot breeze. Miller snapped handcuffs around her wrists, and still not once did they ask who she was. But Ava wasn't just a community volunteer. She was a practicing attorney, a graduate of Harvard Law, a former DOJ prosecutor who had spent years leading task forces on official misconduct. Now she was a field operative for a nonprofit group specializing in systemic investigations. And today, she had chosen Silver Creek. This arrest wasn't just excessive, it was a mistake the county would never recover from. As they hauled her to her feet by her cuffed wrists, her torn blouse revealing more than she should have to bear, Ava's eyes scanned the crowd. Several people stood in shock, but one teenage girl was holding her phone steady, streaming live. The girl met Ava's gaze. That was all the validation Ava needed. This would not be erased. Inside the squad car, the air was suffocating. Russo tossed her bag onto the passenger seat and slid behind the wheel. "Think you can just cause a scene and play the victim, huh?" he said with a smirk. Ava remained silent. Miller glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Something crossed his face. Doubt, maybe. A flash of unease. Then it vanished. As the engine rumbled to life, Ava leaned her head back slowly and deliberately. "You are going to regret this," she said quietly. Russo chuckled. Big talk for someone in cuffs. Ava didn't flinch. "Call your supervisor. Now. What you think this is a movie? Sit back and shut up." But before he could reverse, a market vendor tapped on the passenger window. "You have the wrong person," he said. "I sold her that pottery. I know her." Russo ignored him. By the time they reached the station, 3 clips of the incident had already gone viral. The first, from a high angle above the jewelry stand, showed Ava being accosted, her blouse being torn, and Deputy Russo pointedly ignoring the fluttering receipt. The second closer caught the moment her elbow struck the cobblestone, and she winced in pain. The third, the live stream showed the crowd yelling in her defense, and Miller adjusting his sunglasses as if to hide his own expression. At the Silver Creek station, Ava was paraded past the front desk. An older sergeant looked up with a frown. "Who's this?" he asked. "Causing a disturbance at the market," Russo muttered. The man squinted at her, confused. "Isn't that the lady from the youth outreach program? She took a swing when I asked to see inside her bag." Ava laughed softly. "You're lying on the record now." "Impressive." Russo's eyes narrowed. "Keep talking, you'll get resisting arrest too." They led her past booking and into a holding cell. As the metal door slammed shut, Miller lingered for a moment. He looked deeply uncomfortable. Ava stepped toward the bars. "You ever wonder how far the rot in this department goes?" Deputy Miller flinched. "What are you talking about? You'll find out." He retreated, his face pale. Russo reappeared 15 minutes later, holding her phone. "What's your passcode?" Ava said nothing. "You're not getting it back unless you unlock it." She crossed her arms. "I want my phone call." Russo scoffed. "You think you're in a position to make demands? I know my rights." "A beat, then." "Fine. One call. No tricks." Ava was led to a desk phone. She dialed the number, her fingers moving with calm precision. It rang twice. Then a professional voice answered. "Sentinel Project, you're on a secure line." "This is Operator Phoenix," Ava said. "Activation required. Silver Creek. Incident code Crimson 7. The line paused. "Acknowledged." "Are you live?" "Yes. Footage is circulating. I've been detained. I need extraction protocol initiated within the hour. We've already seen it. Hold your ground." She hung up. Russo stood rigid. What the hell was that? Ava looked him dead in the eye. "You just arrested the wrong damn woman." By the time Ava was returned to her cell, the Sentinel Project, a non-profit coalition of former federal prosecutors, digital forensic experts, and legal strategists, had already mobilized its rapid response team. At 3:17 p.m., a journalist from a national outlet tweeted, "Breaking woman assaulted during Silver Creek arrest is not just a volunteer. She's a former DOJ prosecutor. Video shows deputy tearing her blouse during wrongful detainment." By 3:24 p.m., the story was trending nationally. And by 4:02 p.m., someone inside the Silver Creek Sheriff's Department realized all external surveillance from the town square had been remotely accessed, archived, and leaked to an encrypted server titled Silver Creek Fallout. Deputy Miller sat at his desk, his palms clammy, replaying the incident in his mind. The torn blouse, the yelling crowd, Ava's unwavering voice. It wasn't just the public who would want answers. Internal affairs would be next. And Ava, she sat composed in her holding cell, eyes closed, face a mask of calm. This was not over. This had just begun. The walls of the holding cell were cinder block gray, as cold as the quiet that had fallen over the station. Ava sat on the metal bench, her wrists bruised from the cuffs, the rip in her blouse haphazardly covered by a thin blanket. A desk clerk had given her more out of a sense of unease than compassion. She wasn't angry, not yet. She was focused. Everything was escalating faster than she had planned, but not outside the scope of her contingency models. The call to the Sentinel Project had set in motion a domino effect she couldn't stop and didn't want to. The door squealed open. Sheriff Croft entered, followed by Russo and a clerk holding a tablet. Croft was in his late 50s, with a weathered face and a slight paunch that pushed against the star on his tan uniform shirt. He carried the self-assured calm of a man who believed he was untouchable. "You're a hard woman to get a name for Ms. Cole," he said, his tone feigning mild amusement. Ava looked up. "You didn't even ask." Croft waved that away. "We're getting to the bottom of what happened this afternoon. Misunderstandings happen. Tempers flare. Maybe a little overzealousness. My receipt was misunderstood, she replied flatly. Or was it the part where Deputy Russo tore my blouse open in front of a dozen children? Russo's jaw tensed, but Croft held up a hand. You're not being charged with anything. You'll be released momentarily. Ava's voice was as cool as the concrete floor. I'll walk out of here, Sheriff, but I won't walk away. And when I go, I want the complete personnel files for Deputies Russo and Miller. Internal complaints, use of force reports, body cam access logs. I want them by midnight. Croft almost laughed, but his eyes were hard. You don't seem to understand the position you're in. Ava rose slowly to her full height. You're not a fool, Sheriff. You've seen the video. You know exactly what's coming. Croft's smile evaporated. He turned to the door, gesturing with his head. Get her out of here. Ava was released without charge at 2:42 p.m. No apology. No paperwork. Outside, the town felt different, not just visually but energetically. As she stepped through the station's doors, heads snapped in her direction. A woman across the street raised her phone, a small red light blinking. A man leaning against a truck spoke quietly into his earpiece. Ava crossed the street, her tote bag now held tightly, her posture unbowed, and slid into a nondescript black sedan parked at the curb. Behind the wheel sat a man in his late 30s, sharp-featured, with a close-cropped beard and a Sentinel Project ID clipped discreetly to his belt. Leo Vance. Hell of a way to make an entrance, he said, his gaze fixed on the rearview mirror. I didn't plan the wardrobe malfunction, she replied, her voice dry. But the market, that was the ideal flashpoint. He pulled away from the curb without a word. They drove for 2 blocks before Ava spoke. Did you get the file? Leo handed her a slim folder. Inside were complaints stretching back 5 years. 6 separate incidents of excessive force tied to Russo, 3 involving Miller, all of them closed with no action. The same Internal Affairs lieutenant's signature appeared on every dismissal. Ava studied them with cold precision. What about the department's surveillance archives? Wiped an hour ago, Leo said. But we got 3 full backups from vendor stalls. Your team was fast. Ava nodded. We always anticipate a cover-up. Leo glanced at her. You still sure about this embed strategy? Her eyes met his in the mirror. You think challenging them from the outside would have worked? These people shred paper trails for a living. You can't clean the rot from the street. You have to get inside the walls. He didn't respond. They arrived at a generic motel on the edge of town. Room 114, functional and anonymous. Rear exit, clear line of sight. Pre-installed secure routers beneath the floorboards. Ava went straight to her laptop. Messages were already flooding a secure server. A middle school teacher from nearby Mesa Ridge sent a shaky video. A teenage boy slammed against a locker by the same deputies 6 months prior. No charges were filed, but the boy's father sent a complaint that vanished. A retired Latino deputy, Miguel Grant, emailed copies of body cam footage that had been illegally redacted. He'd been forced into early retirement shortly after questioning the department's racial profiling data. Then a flash drive was delivered by courier, crystal-clear security footage from the cantina across from the market. The angle captured Ava's arrest in sharp detail. The tearing blouse, the crowd's shocked reaction, Miller's clear hesitation, Russo's unchecked aggression. Ava forwarded it to the project's legal team. Leo stood by the window, arms crossed. The mayor's office just put out a statement, vague as hell, talking about a complex situation and asking for patience and calm. Ava kept typing. They're trying to build a firewall. What's the plan? We push, she said, hard, fast, and loud. Leo studied her face. You ready for what comes with that? Ava finally stopped typing and looked up at him. You remember why I left the DOJ? Yeah. The sheriff's department in El Paso. They wouldn't touch him. She nodded. I handed them everything. Witness testimony, financial records, names, and they shelved it. Said it wasn't the right political climate. I'm done waiting for the climate to be right. A moment passed between them. There's one other thing, Leo said finally. He pulled up a county contract on his tablet and showed it to her. At first glance, it looked like a standard IT procurement document, but the line items were odd. Behavioral analytics, community sentiment monitoring, risk mitigation protocols. Ava's eyes narrowed. What is this private surveillance firm? Aegis Analytics, contracted by Silver Creek County 3 months ago. The same firm that flagged your attempted data probe 2 weeks ago at your LA apartment. Ava's stomach tightened. She clenched her fist. They're already running interference. Worse, Leo said. They're listening. Ava glanced at the wall-mounted television, then at the generic smoke detector on the ceiling. Standard model. But her gut screamed at her. She stood on a chair and wrenched it from its base, tucked inside a tiny listening device with a faint red pulse. Leo cursed under his breath. Ava sat back down, her breathing controlled. Her voice was colder now. They're scared. Leo raised an eyebrow. Because of a torn blouse? No, she said. Because they think that's all I am, a woman with a torn blouse. But I'm not here to sue them. I'm here to dismantle them. Then we go public tonight, Leo stated. Ava stared at the screen. Not yet. Why? She turned the laptop towards him. The teenage girl from the market, the one who streamed the arrest, had just posted an update. A new video. Not of the arrest itself, but of what happened after. Russo standing with Miller in the parking lot, laughing. She had the gall to threaten me. Russo's voice crackled. Told me I'd regret it. Miller's voice was quieter. You think she's connected to someone? I think she's another agitator with a camera phone. We'll be fine. Then a third voice, off camera, spoke. Unless she is. You heard that call she made? Russo paused. Miller replied. Could be someone important. The camera jerked. The girl had been hiding behind a parked truck. Leo looked at Ava. This clip changes things. Ava Cole gave a small, sharp smile. No, she said. This clip confirms everything. The first official petition for an internal investigation landed in Mayor Diaz's inbox at 9:08 p.m. By 9:15, 4 national news outlets had picked up the story. By 10:03, justice. For Ava was trending. Inside the dim motel room, Ava Cole opened a new file labeled Aegis Exposure Master. She titled the first document, Silver Creek, the Beginning of the End. And then she began to type, because now the war had truly begun. The next morning, Silver Creek didn't just wake up. It jolted. By 7:00 a.m., every local radio host was repeating the same key phrases viral video, unlawful arrest, civil rights investigation. Coffee shops were thick with murmurs about the Latina lawyer with the torn blouse and the firestorm she'd ignited. Teenagers shared the video clip like a secret handshake. Even the retirees at the weekly bingo game had questions. At 7:43 a.m., Ava's burner phone lit up. An urgent message from Carlos Ramirez, the potter from the market. Attached was a video file. Ava sat at the small motel desk in sweats and a t-shirt, her hair tied back, eyes locked on the screen. She hit play. The video started with a view from behind Carlos's pottery display, angled perfectly towards the street. It showed Russo approaching Ava from behind, saying something unintelligible, and then grabbing her arm. Ava turned, startled. Miller moved to flank her. The confrontation began, and just as in the viral clip, her blouse ripped. But this angle, sharp and unwavering, showed the moment frame by frame. It was undeniably deliberate, not an accident in a scuffle. Russo's hand clenched the fabric and yanked downward with force. Ava paused the frame. There it was. Evidence of assault, plain and simple. She immediately dialed Carlos. The line connected. "You were brave to send this," she said. Carlos's voice was low and anxious. "I almost didn't. My wife was scared, but my daughter, she saw the video online. She said, 'Papi, if that was me, what would you do?' So I couldn't stay quiet." Ava nodded, though he couldn't see her. "I will protect you, Carlos. I promise." "There's more," Carlos added quickly. "After you were gone, Russo and Miller came to my stall. They asked if my security camera was on. I told them the battery was dead." Ava went still. "Did they touch anything?" "They looked around, but they didn't find the memory card. It's hidden under a stack of clay." "Good. Send me the raw file to this secure address," she said, giving him a Sentinel project link. "And Carlos, you did the right thing." She hung up. Less than an hour later, a second burner phone buzzed. Another video, this one from a high school girl named Sophia. It showed the incident from a different angle, shaky but close. More importantly, it captured something the others had missed: Miller's face at the exact moment Russo ripped the blouse. Sophia had captioned her post. "He didn't want to do it. Watch his eyes. Something is wrong here." Ava leaned in, watching Miller's jaw clench. His eyes dart away, his body almost recoil. That flicker of hesitation was real, and now it was documented. She made a note: Miller is the weak link. By 10:20 a.m., she had received 2 more witness accounts, one from a tourist who had been at the market with his young son, and another from a waitress who recognized Ava and filmed part of the aftermath from across the street. These were no longer just bystanders. They were a chorus, and their voices were beginning to harmonize. Ava leaned back, a plan crystallizing. "Time for offense," she said to the room. Leo at the window with his own laptop looked up. "How?" She gave a faint smile. "Public pressure. Controlled disclosures. One piece at a time." That afternoon, Ava posted a statement on an old professional social media account. "This isn't about me. This is for every person who has been silenced, every boundary that has been crossed, every camera that has been ignored. Silver Creek, I see you. America, are you watching?" The post went viral in under an hour. Celebrities shared it. Activists organized online forums. Civil rights attorneys began to publicly dissect the arrest frame by frame. And that night, the unexpected happened. A knock on her motel room door. Leo was instantly on alert, his hand moving toward his hip. But Ava opened it herself. Standing outside was a retired sheriff's deputy, a Latino man in his late 50s, tall and lean, with streaks of silver in his dark hair. He held his hands up slowly. "My name is Miguel Grant," he said. "I used to be a deputy in Silver Creek. I have something for you." Ava stepped aside. Inside, Miguel sat on the edge of the bed and produced a thick file folder. "This is everything I saved before they pushed me into retirement," he said. "Complaints, emails, internal memos they thought they deleted." Ava began flipping through. The first page detailed an internal complaint against Russo for an illegal search during a traffic stop. Farther down, a memo from Sheriff Croft dismissing a use-of-force complaint filed by a younger deputy, by Miguel Grant himself. "They sidelined me," Miguel said. "Told me I was divisive, that I didn't understand modern policing. But this, what they did to you in broad daylight, I couldn't sit back anymore." Ava looked him in the eyes. "You know what this will mean for you." "I have a family," Miguel said. "But I also have a conscience." Ava took a portable scanner from her go bag. They spent the next 2 hours digitizing every document. At midnight, Ava uploaded a new file to the project's secure archive titled Citizen Dossier Phase 1. It contained Carlos's market footage, Sophia's close-up clip, Miguel's internal memos, and a scanned email showing Croft pressuring a subordinate to resolve a body cam issue. Each file was time-stamped and digitally verified. Within 20 minutes, it had over 1,000 downloads. At 2:00 a.m., Leo got a call from a source inside the county manager's office. "They're panicking," he said. "Croft called an emergency late-night meeting. The mayor is trying to play mediator, but the city council is starting to fracture." Ava stared at the motel ceiling. Let it build. The next day, Mayor Linda Diaz stood behind a podium outside the county building. She was composed, dressed in a muted gray suit, her expression serious. "I want to be unequivocally clear," she said. "Silver Creek County does not tolerate excessive force. The deputies involved have been placed on administrative leave pending a full and transparent review." Ava watched the press conference from her room, arms crossed. "No apology," she said. "No admission of wrongdoing. Just PR damage control." Leo shook his head. "She's trying to wait it out." Ava's eyes narrowed. "Then we escalate." Later that afternoon, she walked back to the artisan market. The effect was immediate. Conversations stopped. People watched her pass. Some looked away ashamed. Others gave small, quiet nods of support. Then came the surprise. A bartender from the cantina across the street walked up to her holding out a flash drive. "You don't know me," she said, "but my cousin was arrested 2 years ago, roughed up by Russo. They dropped the charges, but he was never the same. I have security footage from our back alley." Ava took the drive. "You're not alone," the woman whispered. "Not anymore." Ava closed her hand around it. "You just helped build a fire," she said, brick by brick. And somewhere far away in a dorm room in California, a college student opened her laptop and clicked on Ava's latest post. She watched the videos. She read the witness statements. Then she typed, "I'm applying to law school. Because of her," and hit send. The wave had started to build, and Ava Cole was no longer just a story. She was a signal. Ava knew it was coming. She'd been preparing for this phase of the operation since the first clip went viral. You don't pry open the chest of a corrupt law enforcement agency and expect your background to remain hidden. The question wasn't if her identity would break, but when and how. The answer came on a Tuesday morning at 8:13 a.m. A fringe news site with a penchant for conspiracy theories published Ava's complete bio Harvard Law, her years as a federal prosecutor, and her current role as a lead investigator for the Sentinel project. Within 30 minutes, news vans were swarming her motel. Within 45, her sister called her voice frantic. Ava didn't answer. By 9:00 a.m., her face was on 3 major cable news networks plastered across 2 national headlines and on the front page of the Silver Creek Herald. They called her the Torn Blouse Lawyer. By 9:15 a.m., Mayor Diaz issued another statement. "This new information does not alter our commitment to a fair and impartial review. However, we are deeply concerned about the underlying motives of Ms. Cole's presence in Silver Creek." Ava watched the clip on her laptop, the sound off. "Translation," she said to Leo. "They're going to paint me as the villain, an outside agitator who set a trap. You knew this was the playbook," he said, his eyes glued to his own screen. "They're afraid," Ava said calmly, "and afraid people get loud right before they fall." At 10:00 a.m., she walked out of the motel room and stood at the edge of the parking lot, facing a wall of cameras and microphones. She didn't even blink when a reporter shouted, "Did you orchestrate this to entrap these deputies?" Ava took the offered microphone. "No," she said, her voice clear and strong. I came here to hold them accountable. The sudden silence was heavy. I didn't arrive with a legal team. I didn't come here with a lawsuit in my bag. I came with a simple question. What happens when the people entrusted with our safety are the ones who rip away our dignity in the middle of a public square and then walk away as if nothing happened? No one spoke. My name is Ava Cole. I served 7 years as a prosecutor for the Department of Justice. I investigated official misconduct from Florida to California. I have watched good families be destroyed because no one with power would believe them. And I decided it was time to stop watching. A reporter from a Phoenix station stepped forward. But why the subterfuge? Why not just file a formal complaint? Ava looked directly at her. Because complaints get lost, videos get deleted, whistleblowers get fired. I didn't want justice to be a whisper. I wanted it to be seen. Back in the motel room, her team was tracking real-time reactions. The speech was a bombshell. Memes and clips of her dismantling the mayor's narrative spread like wildfire. Someone remixed her quote with a protest song. By noon, the Sentinel Project issued its own statement confirming that Ava was their lead operative and her work in Silver Creek was part of a broader multi-state investigation into systemic corruption. But the real tipping point came when the footage was played on primetime national television. One network framed it as an elaborate sting operation. Another called it the terror herd round the nation. A third simply played the raw video of the arrest, no commentary necessary. And the public responded. Mothers saw their daughters. Fathers saw injustice. Even retired cops started sending in anonymous tips. Old grievances, buried reports, forgotten patterns. The most significant twist, however, came at 4:32 p.m. Ava's encrypted inbox pinged. An anonymous source email routed through 3 foreign servers sent a 5-second audio file. The voice was deep and digitally distorted. I'm inside SCPD. You're right. It goes higher than Croft. Attached was a second file, a body cam snippet that had never been officially logged. In it, Sheriff Croft was standing beside Russo 2 hours after Ava's arrest, unaware his camera was still recording. Croft's voice was unmistakable. Crush her credibility before the feds get wind of this. Paint her as unhinged. That's the play. Ava went cold. Leo looked up from his work. That's a nuke. She nodded. We launch it, tonight, at 7:00 p.m. sharp. The Sentinel Project's media team launched a coordinated drop across all major platforms. Title: The Plan to Silence Ava Cole. The video spliced Croft's body cam quote with footage of the torn blouse in slow-motion clips from Ava's press speech and an emotional montage of Silver Creek citizens saying her name, giving their own testimonials. Ava watched it from her motel bed shoes, still on knees, hugged to her chest. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just whispered one word. Finally. The air in Silver Creek had shifted. It was no longer just tense. It was electric, charged with the energy of a coming storm. The video leak of Sheriff Croft's voice had sparked a national firestorm. Overnight, local protests had evolved into organized vigils. The phrase "crush her credibility" was scrawled on signs not as a statement, but as an accusation. A battle cry against the corruption Ava Cole had unearthed. But for Ava, this was not the final act. It was simply the next one. She stood before a whiteboard in room 114, the motel lights casting long shadows. Red lines and names covered the board, a map of conspiracy. Croft is just a symptom. Ava said, her voice quiet. This rot has deeper roots. We're not just dealing with bad deputies. This is an entire ecosystem. Leo across the room was sifting through county contracts and campaign finance reports. "Guess who supplies all the county's surveillance tech?" he said, dropping a file on the table. "Aegis Analytics," Ava said without looking. Private firm Leo confirmed. 2 of their founders are ex-DHS. They're embedded in half the county departments. Their contract is for traffic monitoring and crowd safety. Except they've also been creating and sharing unsanctioned profiles, sharing them with who Leo pointed to a name circled at the bottom of the board. Judge Wallace. Ava felt a cold knot in her stomach. She knew Wallace from her DOJ days. He was sharp detached and notorious for signing off on no-knock warrants with a smile. "Wallace has been rubber-stamping every questionable search warrant from Croft's department," Leo explained. "And Aegis has been feeding him the targets. They're using predictive data to target potential dissidents before they even act. Preemptive policing." "Abusive policing," Leo corrected. The case had spiraled far beyond her arrest. It was about a town where the judiciary, law enforcement, and a private tech firm had created a feedback loop that crushed dissent. At 1:17 p.m., an anonymous text came through. A nurse at the local hospital on shift the day of her arrest had overheard Russo and Miller in the break room. She agreed to meet in the alley behind the ER. Ava and Leo arrived just as dusk settled. The nurse was young Latina, still in scrubs with a hoodie pulled over her head. "My name stays out of this," she said, her voice trembling. "Of course," Ava assured her. "What did you hear?" They were laughing, the nurse said. Russo said, "You see the way her blouse tore? Bet she's never been that exposed before." And Miller said, "She had that look like she thought she was above it all." They thought it was hilarious. Ava's hands balled into fists at her sides. "Did they say anything else?" Leo asked. The nurse hesitated. "They said someone from up top told them to be loud, to trigger a reaction, like they were trying to bait her into a fight." Ava's blood ran cold. "They wanted me to resist," she whispered. Leo nodded grimly. They wanted a video of an angry Latina woman screaming in cuffs. It would have justified anything they did next. Back at the motel, Ava added the nurse's testimony to the growing file. A few hours later, a new message arrived, this one from a name she hadn't seen in years. James Ryland, a former federal law clerk turned whistleblower. He'd been following her case. The email was blunt. "I have something on Wallace. He suppressed evidence in 3 brutality cases tied to Croft's deputies 2 years ago. Wanted Ava called him immediately. How fast can you get it here?" she asked. "It's already on its way." At 3:44 a.m., a courier delivered a sealed envelope. Inside were copies of judicial memos where Wallace dismissed civilian complaints against Russo as non-substantive. 2 of the cases were settled with payouts from an obscure county risk management fund, a slush fund for silencing victims. Ava stared at the documents, at the cold, hard proof of a conspiracy she had only suspected. Leo broke the silence. "This is enough for a federal inquiry." "No," Ava said. "It's enough to burn their entire system to the ground." She drafted a new report she titled The Silver Creek Nexus. It outlined every player, every backroom deal, every silenced victim. She embedded QR codes that linked directly to witness videos, the redacted judicial memos, the audio of the deputies laughing, and the receipts for the hush money payments. And then she sent it to 6 national news organizations. At 10:09 a.m., the first story broke. By noon, a U.S. senator had called for a full Department of Justice audit of Silver Creek County. Sheriff Croft issued a vehement denial. Aegis Analytics claimed no knowledge. Judge Wallace was unavailable for comment. Ava switched off the news and leaned back, her body weary, but her eyes blazing. "We're past damage control," Leo said. No, Ava corrected him. We're at the breaking point. She reached into her bag, took out the torn strip of terracotta fabric she'd kept folded since that day, and laid it on the motel desk. This, she said, her voice low and dangerous, is what they will remember. Not just the system we broke, but the piece they tried to rip away from me, thinking it was nothing. And now it means everything. The sun had not yet risen when the first crack appeared in the wall. It came in the form of a resignation letter emailed to the county manager's office. It was from Deputy Miller. Ava read the scanned copy, a knot of anticipation tightening in her chest. The signature was unsteady, the language stiff, but the message was clear. He wasn't just quitting. He was ready to talk. By 6:03 a.m., Miller had agreed to an interview with a Sentinel Project attorney under protected status. By 7:10 a.m., he was sitting across a table from Ava and Leo in a secure office in a neighboring town, looking pale and gaunt. "Are you sure this place is clean?" he asked, his eyes flitting toward the ceiling vents. "We swept it ourselves," Ava said coolly. Miller wrung his hands. In a wrinkled polo shirt stripped of his uniform, he looked like a boy. "I didn't know who you were," he began. "Not really. But Russo did. He got a heads up." Ava froze. "A heads up from who?" "Someone at Aegis. They flagged your digital footprint when you made a query a week before. They didn't have a name, but they suspected a plant. They told Russo to provoke you, to push you until you reacted on camera." Ava leaned back, the pieces clicking into place. They wanted a fight. They wanted a video of a hysterical woman, Miller confirmed. "But you didn't give it to them." "No," Ava said softly. "And that's when Russo lost control. He just kept escalating. When he tore your blouse, he knew the optics were already shot. He figured he might as well humiliate you." Leo leaned forward, and Croft Miller looked away. "He didn't just cover for us. He directs it. He's been using Aegis for years, digging up dirt on anyone who criticizes him, keeping deputies in line. If you question an order, you get stuck on the graveyard shift, or worse, targeted by IA." Ava tapped a pen against the table. "Are you willing to testify to that?" Miller stared at his hands. "If I don't, they'll bury me. I mean for real." "We'll offer protection," Ava said. "You can't guarantee my safety." "No," she admitted. "But you can guarantee that someone else's daughter doesn't get dragged across the pavement for nothing." Miller gave a slow, defeated nod. Then he reached into a backpack and pulled out a flash drive. "Everything I kept. Body cam archives, Aegis, meeting notes, internal emails. Croft ordered us to purge." Leo took it silently. 2 hours later, Ava stood before a federal judge petitioning for an emergency injunction to seize the Silver Creek Sheriff's Department servers. Miller's evidence was a bombshell. The injunction was granted. By noon, federal agents were swarming the department headquarters, taping off offices, and seizing hardware. Sheriff Croft stormed out, pushing past reporters. "No comment," he yelled. But the true shock came at 1:12 p.m., when a breaking news alert lit up Ava's phone. Aegis Analytics CEO found dead in his home. Apparent suicide. Ava's blood ran cold. "No," she whispered. "That is not a coincidence." Leo read the article over her shoulder. "Gunshot wound. No note. His lawyer says he'd been under extreme stress." He was the connection, Ava said. He had the records, the contracts. With him gone, the digital trail to whoever was pulling the strings goes cold. But Ava refused to be stalled. She returned to the safe house, inserted Miller's flash drive into a secure laptop, and found it a folder labeled Project Cinder. Inside were audio files and email chains from Aegis executives. They discussed strategies for neutralizing community dissent with chilling specifics. One directive stood out. High-visibility arrests are optimal, particularly WOC. Optics of confrontation create division-disrupting grassroots organization. Ava covered her mouth, a wave of nausea washing over her. They didn't just want to control the narrative, they wanted to sow chaos and fear. They were weaponizing prejudice, Leo said grimly. At 5:00 p.m., Ava went live from her own secure channel. She sat at the desk, the torn piece of terracotta fabric laid beside her. I want to speak to everyone who still thinks this is just about one arrest. She began, her voice unwavering. I want to talk to every woman who has ever been touched without her consent, every man who's been stopped without cause, every child who has been taught that it's safer to be silent. She held up the flash drive. This is what they fear. Not anger. Evidence. Witnesses who refuse to look away. She leaned into the camera. They tore my blouse because they thought it would break me, but all they did was expose what lives underneath the badge in Silver Creek. By the time she finished, Project Cinder was trending globally. But something even more profound was happening. People started to gather in front of the Silver Creek Sheriff's Department, not with picket signs, but with candles. Dozens at first, then hundreds, then over 1,000 citizens standing shoulder to shoulder in the fading light. No chants, no yelling, just their quiet, powerful presence. A mass refusal to be ignored. Ava watched the live feed from her motel window, and for the first time since she was thrown to the ground, she let herself smile. It was not a smile of victory. It was a smile of quiet, dawning hope. The Silver Creek Sheriff's Department was a ghost of its former self. Federal vehicles sat in the spaces once occupied by patrol cars. The local deputies had been replaced by agents in suits. Croft's office was sealed. Inside, the sound of computers being cataloged and files being boxed was the only sound in a system finally being dismantled. Ava Cole sat on a bench across the street, watching. The city was finally speaking for itself. But one piece was missing. Russo. Since Miller's confession and the federal raid, Deputy Richard Russo had vanished. His badge was on a desk at IA, but he hadn't been seen in 2 days. Men like Russo don't just disappear, Leo said, scrolling through intel on his tablet. They fight back. They go on cable news and scream about being victims of a setup. This silence is wrong. It scares me more than any public rant. Ava agreed. Unless he was silenced, she said quietly, by someone with more to lose. Late that night, an encrypted tip came in. A scrambled voice, no caller ID. He's at his cousin's place. A cabin on Canyon Lake. You didn't get this from me. We're going, Ava said, standing up. Could be a trap, Leo warned. It's the only move we have left before this whole thing gets sanitized. The drive to the lake was dark and silent. The cabin was a small A-frame structure, nearly hidden by pine trees. A single porch light cast a weak yellow glow. No other cars, no signs of surveillance. Ava slipped a micro-recorder into her jacket pocket as they walked up the wooden steps. Leo was a step behind his hand near the small of his back. He knocked. Silence. Then a floorboard creaked inside. The door opened, and there was Russo. He was unshaven, with dark circles under his eyes, wearing a faded t-shirt and jeans. He looked broken. You, he said, his voice flat. Us, Ava replied. He stepped aside, a gesture of weary surrender. The cabin was a wreck. Dirty dishes, empty beer bottles, and stacks of papers littered every surface. He slumped into a chair. You already got me. Why are you here? Ava remained standing. Because your disappearance still protects them. Russo laughed, a dry, bitter sound. I'm protecting myself. You've already been implicated, Leo said. It's over for you. The only choice you have left is who you want to be when this ends. The monster they use as a scapegoat, or the man who told the truth. Russo rubbed his face with both hands. Croft ran the whole show. Aegis fed us the targets, but it was Croft who gave the orders. That day he told me to make sure you didn't walk away clean. He said you were a political symbol that needed to be tarnished. He finally looked up at Ava. I didn't know you were a Fed. I just thought you were another activist with a cell phone. Ava's gaze was unyielding. And if I had been, Russo swallowed hard. I still tore your blouse. The words hung in the air. I didn't think it would, I don't know, but I see it every time I close my eyes. Ava sat down across from him. I'm not here for your conscience, Russo. I'm here for the facts. Put them on the record. Not to save yourself, but to make sure what's left of this corrupt system can't crush the next person who gets in its way. Russo looked at the recorder in her pocket. What happens to me? You testify, Leo said. Then you take your chances. Probation may be sometime. Depends on the prosecutor. But you get to be something other than the face of this rot. Russo got up and stared out the window at the dark water. He turned back. Fine, I'll talk. But there's another name. The deputy county manager. Stevenson. He signed the Aegis contract. He knew exactly what it was for. He was getting kickbacks. Ava's stomach clenched. Are you sure I saw the ledgers? She stood. You'll give a full statement, he nodded. Yeah. Ava hit record. For the next 32 minutes, Russo unspooled the entire conspiracy. He named names, gave dates, and provided login credentials for a hidden server where deputies bragged about their exploits. By the time they left, the recorder was full, and Russo looked like a man who had finally set down an impossibly heavy burden. Back at the safe house, Ava uploaded the confession. Leo sat beside her. Is this the end of it? No, she said. But it's the beginning of the justice. Outside, the vigils had become a constant. People held candles. They sang softly. And as Ava watched the small constellation of lights from her window, she whispered, Tomorrow. Tomorrow it ends. The courtroom was a silent, simmering pressure cooker. Every seat was taken. Every phone was off. News vans lined the streets outside. The silent protesters remained their candles, now unlit in the daylight, their message unchanged. Ava Cole stood at the plaintiff's table, composed in a simple dark gray suit. Her focus was absolute. Across the aisle, Sheriff Croft sat with his jaw clenched tight. Beside him, Richard Russo, looking small and defeated in an ill-fitting suit. Judge Rhonda Castillo took her seat and called the proceedings to order. Ava rose to give her final statement. Your Honor, she began, her voice steady and clear. This case was never about a piece of fabric. It was about what that fabric represented, the casual theft of a person's dignity, the unchecked power to humiliate, and the culture of silence that allows it to happen. She looked directly at Croft. Silver Creek County didn't fall apart overnight. It was dismantled piece by piece behind closed doors. Today, this court has the power to start putting it back together, not with punishment alone, but with truth. Then she turned to the gallery. My name is Ava Cole. I was accosted, assaulted, and publicly shamed in broad daylight. But I am still standing here, not because I was special, but because I refused to be silent. She paused. And because others brave citizens retired, deputies, young people with phones, and older people with regrets, refused to be silent with me. When she finished, a profound quiet filled the room. Judge Castillo nodded, once her expression unreadable. A verdict will be rendered tomorrow morning. The crowd outside didn't disperse. They waited through the night, a silent, collective holding of breath. At midnight, a new video leaked, this one from the deputy county manager's office, showing him and the Aegis CEO laughing as they discussed the initial contract. It was the final nail. Stevenson was arrested before dawn. The next morning, Judge Castillo delivered her ruling. All claims against Ms. Cole are dismissed. A federal receivership for the Silver Creek Sheriff's Department is hereby ordered. Sheriff Croft and Deputy Russo will be referred for federal prosecution. Finally, this court demands an immediate statewide suspension of all contracts with Aegis Analytics. A stunned collective exhale swept through the courtroom. Ava didn't smile. She just breathed. Later that afternoon, she walked back through the artisan market, the very spot where it all began. The vendors were there, the pottery, the music. Children chased each other between stalls, clutching brightly colored raspados. But the air had changed. People approached her not for interviews, not even to say thank you, but just to meet her eyes and nod a shared understanding of what their collective voice had accomplished. Sophia, the teenager, who posted the video of Miller's face, walked up with a shy smile. "You actually did it," she whispered. Ava knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "No," she said gently. "We did." That night in her motel room, for the last time, Ava sat before her phone and hit record. She looked straight into the lens. No notes, no script. Silver Creek will never be the same. Not because a system failed, but because its people refused to let it. This was never just my story. It's yours. It belongs to every person who has been told to sit down, shut up, and accept their humiliation. She held up the folded strip of torn terracotta linen, the one she'd carried with her since the arrest, and placed it on the table. They thought tearing my blouse would make me disappear. Instead, it uncovered them. She paused, a small, genuine smile finally reaching her eyes. If this story meant something to you, if it made you angry, if it gave you hope, don't let it end here. Share it, talk about it, and stand up for the next person so they don't have to stand alone. Follow this channel. Join the movement, because the only thing more powerful than their fear is our voice. The screen faded to black, and the fight carried on.